probably without a doubt the biggest loss in the way of a fire that I can recall. So the pit house was a really old, 100-year-old house, and we get that call. And we get down there, and the fire was pretty much in the kitchen, maybe a little more, part more of the house. We fought that fire, and we won. We thought we won. And I can remember going home, and I wasn't home 5 minutes, and that pager goes off, and that fire is rekindled. And the tar is dripping down from the roof, I can remember on our gloves and stuff, dripping on us. We knew we had to get out of there. We spent the rest of the night at that fire. And we lost that house. And that was my biggest disappointment, losing that house. My name is Dick Kettler. I've been a member of the Robinson Volunteer Fire Department since 1955. I started out as the department mascot, and I soon graduated to fighting fires. Been doing that as a volunteer ever since. Lorena had a fire and volunteer department, maybe McGregor, perhaps Mart. That was about it. So we really didn't have any fire protection. We had fire, people out here dealt with it. I can remember when I was really small, grass fire down around where Brookshire's is, in that area. And I can remember people using buckets of water and sacks to beat out the fire. My roots run deep in Robinson. My grandparents came here from Germany in the early 1880s. Father passed away from a heart attack a week before I was 11 years old. So after that, I kind of gravitated to my Uncle Bill. Before the city was incorporated in 1955, Robinson was kind of right here. So about the same year that the city of Robinson was incorporated, the Robinson Fire Department came into existence, I think March of 1955. There were a group of guys that were original members, 18 or 20-ish maybe. There's still 3 or 4 of us alive. In those early years, we had boots and a hand-me-down coat from the Waco Fire Department, and maybe a helmet. That would be a hand-me-down. That's it. No pants.
The coat we have over here is from you got it in 1956, used from Waco. So that's potentially a coat from the 40s.
Yeah. So you look at that coat and see if it complies with the standards of today. We may do with what we have because we didn't have any money. This fire department really was started by my Uncle Bill Kettler. He knew more about fighting a house fire than anybody I ever knew. He was in the Waco Fire Department from 1921 to 1946, there was a man named Jack Nard. He was retired from the Waco Fire Department. There was a man named Homer Drummond. He was a chief out at James Connolly Air Force Base. He was another assistant chief. Those were the people that had the experience fighting fires. All of us were novices, you know. We learned from them. We had fire phones. It was sort of like a party line. When that phone rang, it would ring in 6 or 8 of the firemen's houses, and then my uncle's house, who lived on that corner next to the fire station. Somebody would go across the street, probably my aunt or my uncle, set the siren off, which we had on a timer, and write the call on a board. And so if you heard the siren, you knew there was a call. You didn't know what kind of call it was. You had to come to the station to kind of find out what it was. He might say, "House fire, Galinda." My goodness, they didn't tell you anything. So, you know, you just have to head that direction. There was no radio communication. None.
You just really had to follow the smoke trail or the water trail.
Or the water trail. Or if it may have somebody's name on the board, so you would kind of know where to go. But, you know, you did your best. A lot of it was on-the-job training, you know. You learned by going to fires. You learned by watching how my uncle maybe would find the seat of the fire and dealt with it. Because we didn't, you know, we didn't have any water to waste. And, I mean, for the first, I don't even know, 15 years, 15, 20 years, we had no air packs, no SCBAs. You went into the fire, you dealt with it till you couldn't take it anymore, and you got out. You know, you ate the smoke. The money for the fire department came from donations and the barbecue we had every year. They had a barbecue the very first year in the summer of 1955. Across the street under here into the trees. They probably charged $1 a ticket. And then a few years later, we started getting income, 25 cents from each water meter in Robinson. That helped us a lot financially, probably to buy our first new fire truck, which was a 1959 Ford. We used that station till about 1965, thereabouts. Here's a photograph of the new station, and somebody's commented about that tree. We had a tree in the front of the station that we had to maneuver around to get the trucks in.
Yeah, it looks like it's right in the middle.
Don't ask me why that wasn't chopped down, but it wasn't. This is the new station, the original fire station. This was turned into the city hall and the police department. So everything was in that one little building. You know, in those early years, it was more of a question, was this truck going to get to the call without breaking down? And if it did get there, was it going to operate? We bid on a used truck from James Connolly Air Force Base. It's in this photograph. It was a 1942 Ford. They paid $777.99 for that truck. It had a lot of equipment on it. The very next day, they got a call from a person named Mickey O'Dowd, who was the brother of Everett O'Dowd, who was the first mayor of Robinson. They lived in Speakerville. Their house was on fire. My uncle and a couple of other people went on that truck, drove all the way out there, across where Lake Waco is now, and they put out that fire with 150 gallons of water, and they stuck a garden hose in the tank of that truck to fill up.
150 gallons of water is worth emphasizing, because now on a fire we will literally use thousands of gallons of water. So to be able to put out a house fire with 150 gallons in 1955.
You had to know what you were doing.
Yes.
And really, that's all they had. We have gone, over the years, we've gone from not having very good equipment and really no water to excellent crisp equipment and a water supply or tankers where we, with 4,000 gallons of water, we better win that battle. What we have today is unbelievable, you know? It's unbelievable. Some people, I guess, take that for granted, what we have. This truck behind us was bought for $10,000 in about 1963. It's a 1962 model, but we got it in about 1963. The very day that truck came to Robinson, we had to call down on Newland Drive to Benner Construction Company. Part of that building is still there. Anyway, the rear of that place was on fire. Mr. Benner had some valuable antique cars in that building. It seems to me like most of them burned. I remember some of them were pulled out of there. But anyway, we went down there that night. That truck was over at my uncle's service station. And the salesman drove that truck to that call. And we used that truck that day. And we kind of used it for a parade vehicle for, you know, things for, I don't even know how long. And then we sold it to Axtell or Elk or someplace over there in eastern McLennan County. And, you know, we kind of lost track of it. And one of our members found that truck under a shade tree. I mean, it was junk. And they bought it from whoever may have owned it, brought it back over here, and it's been restored pretty much to how it looked before. Here's the first pickup truck. This was a 1962 Chevrolet. My uncle put about a 100-gallon water tank on there, a little pumping motor, a section of red line, and a nozzle. There was our grass truck. Nobody else, nobody around here had a grass truck. This was the best thing we had to fight a grass fire.
One of the first brush trucks out there, grass trucks out there.
I don't know of any other one, and we had several trucks, there were several pickups like this, after this one, that we used to fight grass fires.
When that fire phone rings, someone on the receiving end of our service is having one of the worst days of their lives.
That's right. And, you know, early on it was the fire phone and the siren and the blackboard kind of a deal. And as years went by, we got some pagers really early on. The only radio we had was in my uncle's pickup truck. We didn't have a radio in the pumpers. So we'd be making a call, he'd have the radio in his truck, we didn't have anything. We'd have to make sure he didn't get too far ahead of us to get out of sight of us where we didn't know where he was going. You know, back in the mid-50s, 1960s, 70s, before we had pagers, if the wind was blowing in the wrong direction, you didn't hear the call. That siren is something you need to hear. I really think it still works. It's been a few years ago. Somebody and we were over there. I hit that button and it worked. And so we had to turn the switch off, the master switch, to make it stop. Because we weren't supposed to do that.
There's more firefighter injuries in the response to or from the call than at the call. If it takes you 6 more seconds to get there, but it means you get there, that's more important than not getting there.
If you ever have an accident in a truck, you damage one of these engines and you don't take it to a repair shop. I mean, it's got to go back to the factory. You may not have it back for a year. We can't do without an engine for a year. It was one morning, I'd taken my twins to school, mid-80s maybe. We had a fire in Downsville. We had a new tanker truck, fairly new. We were driving down Downsville Road. We got to the curve down there. The truck went off the side a little bit, came up on the road. I flipped the thing. There's nothing worse than hearing that metal scrape on the asphalt. Climbed out through the windshield. We never made it to that call. And it crushed the weight of that tank and that water, crushed the rear wheels, the dual wheels, crushed those wheels. So there wasn't any way, for that truck to come out of that. Water was everywhere. It was, sickening feeling. I had some kind of cut on my head. I don't remember, somewhere up here. My wife took me to the doctor and sewed it up. We repaired that truck, put a new tank on it, used it.
Anytime I go around it in a fire truck, they say, watch out for Kettler's Corner.
Yeah, you know where that is? Yeah. Most situations, when you first get there, something else is in control. You got to gain that control. You kind of step back and take a breath. Don't let the emotion of the situation get to you. You can't get tunnel vision. You've got to be flexible. And you may have been taught things in the classroom, but don't get that tunnel vision to believe that's the only way to do something, because when you get there, that situation may call for doing something different, or maybe doing something you really shouldn't do, but that's the thing you got to do at the time.
We have a fire call, a residential house fire. We go and spend 3-4 hours maybe, fighting that fire. The work's not done.
So you got to get that truck back in order for the next call. You don't know if this call is coming in the next 10 minutes. We've had calls that have happened at almost the same time. You never know, and you can't come back to this station and leave the hose unloaded or the truck not refilled with water or even washed. It's really important to wash these trucks.
Why is it so expensive over time to operate a fire department?
Well, you got to have equipment that you can rely on. Some of this stuff you pay 2 or 3 times the price for is 2 or 3 times as good. But that's why, and we have to have equipment that we know we can trust. Sometimes there's just nothing that you can do, no matter what it is. And you just have to try to, in your mind, know I did everything I could. I did the best I could. There wasn't anything I could do more under those circumstances. I mean, that's all. You can't let that get to you every call. I don't see how you can't live in this business like that. To me, in a way, a volunteer can have more pride in what he or she is doing to help their community.